There are signs of inflation all around us these days, from gas prices to food costs. So what's really linked to the dangers of the rapid inflation? Well, let's find out. Hey, my name's Josh, and in this video, I'm going to talk about the 5 risks associated with the high levels of inflation. A slow rate of inflation is a normal thing, but there's actually a lot of risk that comes with the high rate of inflation. Number 1, higher prices of goods and services. We all know that inflation can be a real pain in the wallet. Prices go up, but our incomes stay the same. But did you know that inflation can also have negative impacts on our mental health? Well, studies have shown that inflationary pressures can lead to increased levels of anxiety and stress. And it's just not all about the money. When prices go up, we feel like we're losing control of our lives. We can no longer afford things that we want and need, and we start to worry about the future. Inflation can lead to social unrest as people take to the streets to protest the rising prices. So next time you're feeling stressed about inflation, remember that it's not just about the money. It's also the psychological piece. Number 2, the decreased value of money. Anyone who's ever been a kid knows the disappointment in finding a coin on the ground only to realize it's not worth as much as it used to be. Well, inflation is a silent thief that robs us all of our purchasing power, and it's only getting worse. According to some estimates, inflation has decreased the value of the dollar by more than 96% since the 1900s, and it's only going to get worse. And it's not just the price of goods and services that are rising. Wages are also stagnating, making it harder and harder to make ends meet. So what can we do about it? For now, there's not much we can do except stop trying to keep up with the Joneses and hope that inflation doesn't increase too much more. As prices go up, we need to spend more money to maintain our standards of living. Over time, our money buys less and less, and if inflation is high enough, it can cause a currency to collapse. This can be a real problem for people on fixed income, such as pensioners. They may not be able to keep up with the rising costs and end up living in poverty. Number 3, difficulty in planning for the future. It's hard to plan for the future when you don't know what it'll look like. And that is exactly the problem with inflation. It makes it difficult for us to predict how much money we'll need for tomorrow or the next year or the next 5 years. Because prices are always changing, we can never be sure of the cost of the future. This uncertainty makes it hard for us to save money and invest in our future. We just don't know how much money we need today for tomorrow. This makes it difficult for businesses to plan ahead too. They can't predict how much they'll need to charge for products and services in order to cover the cost to make a profit. So businesses may be reluctant to expand or hire new staff, knowing the rising prices are quickly going to erase all the profits that they make. Inflation can also lead to stagflation. It's a dangerous economic condition where the prices are rising but the economy growth is slowing. This creates a lot of uncertainty and instability, which can be bad for business and bad for the economy as a whole. Number 4, increased borrowing costs. There's no doubt about it that inflation is a problem, but it's not just the cost of goods and services that are increasing, it's also the cost of borrowing. In recent years, we've seen interest rates on loans and credit cards increase at an alarming rate. And as a result, many people are struggling to keep up with their monthly payments. So what can we do about it? Well, first of all, we need to be more mindful of spending. When inflation is high, it's important to think twice before making a big purchase. And secondly, we need to be prepared to adjust our budgets accordingly. If inflation continues to rise, we may need to cut back on some discretionary spending in order to meet ends meet. But ultimately, inflation is something that we all need to deal with, and being mindful of our spending and our budgeting is the very important key concept to weathering the storm. Number 5, reduced economic growth. You may have heard that inflation is bad for the economy. After all, it erodes the value of money and makes it harder for businesses to keep prices down. But what you may not know is that inflation can lead to reduced economic growth. When inflation is high, businesses have to raise their prices in order to maintain profit margins. As a result, consumers have less money to spend on goods and services. This decrease in demand can lead to layoffs and a decrease in production, which ultimately reduces economic growth. So next time you hear somebody say inflation is good for the economy, be sure to remind them of the potential downsides. So if you're worried about inflation, you should be grateful for the reduced economic growth. It may not be good for the economy as a whole, but it's keeping inflation in check. My final thoughts. Inflation is a problem that we all have to deal with, and being mindful of our spending and budgeting wisely is the only way we're going to get through high levels of inflation. So if you're interested in these videos that I'm making about finances, be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.